Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're trying to cut through some of the noise, tackle that question everyone seems to be asking. Is AI coming for our jobs? And maybe more specifically, are those headlines about huge job losses, especially for entry-level folks, actually reflecting reality? We're going to dive into some really fresh, large-scale research that looks at exactly this. Our source today is a paper that just dropped weeks ago in August 2025. It's called the AI Canary. 6 facts about the recent employment effects of artificial intelligence. It comes from Eric Brynjolfsson and his team at Stanford. And it gives this almost real-time look at the labor market.
Yeah, and what's really powerful here is the data. This isn't guesswork. They're using high-frequency payroll data from ADP, the huge U.S. payroll company, millions of workers, thousands of firms, right up to July 2025.
Exactly. So it's like getting a snapshot month by month, individual by individual, super granular, which is pretty rare for this kind of analysis.
It really is. It lets us see trends as they're actually unfolding.
And the paper uses this great metaphor, the canary in the coal mine, looking for those first, maybe small, concentrated signs of AI's impact that could signal bigger shifts later on. So our goal today is basically to walk you through the 6 key facts they uncovered, help you understand what these early shifts might mean, particularly if you're just starting your career. And we'll try not to get too bogged down in academic jargon.
And I think that real-time aspect you mentioned is just crucial. It moves us past speculation. We're not just talking potential impact. We're looking at actual observed changes happening now, which, often turns out differently than we might predict.
That's a great point. Okay, so let's jump into their first fact, which is pretty striking right off the bat. It's about sharp declines for young workers in AI-exposed jobs. We're talking early career folks here, ages roughly 22 to 25. And since generative AI really took off, think late 2022, when ChatGPT and similar tools exploded, this group has seen a significant relative drop in employment in the jobs most likely to be affected by AI.
And they give some specific examples, right?
They do, like software developers aged 22 to 25. Their employment numbers fell nearly 20% by July 2025 compared to where they were in late 2022. That's a big drop.
Wow, 20%.
Yeah. And customer service reps in the same age group. Similar story, a clear downward trend. But here's the kicker. Older, more experienced workers in those exact same jobs didn't see that drop. Their employment was stable or even grew. And if you look at jobs less exposed to AI, like say nursing aides, you see employment for young people actually growing faster than for older workers.
So it's incredibly specific. It's not just a general market trend or a tech downturn hitting everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's this demographic and these roles, which immediately makes you wonder, why them? Why are they the canary here? What makes their situation different from their older colleagues?
That's the million-dollar question, and we'll definitely dig into the why later. But first, let's zoom out a bit with their second fact. Because this isn't just about a few specific job titles. While the overall job market has been growing pretty robustly, the employment growth specifically for young workers, that 22 to 25 group, has basically been flat, stagnant since late 2022.
Flat, even as the rest of the economy is adding jobs.
Yeah, it stands out. And if you quantify it within those AI-exposed jobs we talked about, younger workers saw about a 6% decline between late 22 and July 25. But older workers, say 35 to 49, in the same jobs, they saw a 9% increase.
Wow, that's quite a divergence, a 15-point swing between the age groups in the same occupation.
Right, so if you're a young person looking for that first job or maybe advising someone who is, this isn't some niche issue. It looks like it's affecting the broader landscape of entry-level opportunities.
It really does, and it suggests maybe less about outright job destruction across the board and more about a kind of reorientation, a shift in who is getting hired for which types of roles, even within growing fields.
Reorientation. I like that term. It's less alarmist than just job loss.
Well, the overall numbers are still growing, but the opportunities seem to be shifting away from these younger cohorts in certain areas, which, has big implications down the line for career paths, training.
Absolutely. Okay, so things are shifting for young people in exposed roles. But now we get to fact 3, which I think is maybe the most fascinating part of this. It's this critical difference they draw between AI that automates tasks versus AI that augments human workers. Because not all AI impacts jobs the same way.
This is crucial. How do they actually measure that difference?
So they got their hands on usage data from Anthropic's Claude LLM. That's one of the big AI models. They looked at millions of interactions to see how people were using AI in different jobs. They classified uses like directive, basically telling the AI, do this task for me, or feedback loop, where the AI learns and corrects itself, like fixing code. They saw those as automating, replacing human step.
Okay, taking over the task.
Right. But then uses like task iteration, using AI to refine something you did, or learning, or validation, those were classified as augmenting. AI as a helper, a co-pilot.
Makes sense. Assisting versus replacing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the punchline. Entry-level employment dropped significantly in jobs where AI was mostly used for automation. But, and this is the important but, in jobs where AI was used more to augment human work, they didn't see those same declines for young workers. Sometimes employment even grew.
Ah, so that's a really powerful finding. It suggests the way we design and deploy AI tools is maybe more important than the AI itself, at least for these employment effects.
That really seems that way.
If you build AI to replace, it might well replace, especially these entry-level, perhaps more codified tasks. But if you build it to enhance, it might actually create different kinds of opportunities or sustain existing ones. It puts the focus on how we integrate the technology.
Yeah, it's less about AI is coming and more about how are we using the AI that's coming.
Precisely. It offers a bit more agency, maybe, for companies and even policymakers.
Okay, but some people might still be skeptical. Couldn't this just be, certain industries having a tough time, or maybe younger workers just happen to be concentrated in firms that are more volatile anyway? How do we know it's really the AI?
That's a fair challenge, and the researchers were clearly aware of it. They used a method to control for what they call firm time effects.
Okay, what does that mean in plain English?
It basically means they tried to statistically remove the impact of any big shock or trend that would affect everyone working at a specific company at a specific time. Like if a whole company hits a rough patch unrelated to AI.
Got it. So isolating the AI exposure effect from general company performance.
Exactly. And even after doing that complex adjustment, the core finding held up. That significant relative decline for young workers in the most exposed jobs, roughly a 12 log point difference, which translates to about 12%, was still there and statistically significant.
So it wasn't just about young people being at struggling companies.
It seems not. The link to AI exposure remains strong even after accounting for those broader firm-level issues.
That's pretty convincing. Did they run other checks too? Try to poke holes in their own theory?
Oh yeah, they did a whole battery of robustness checks. It's actually fact 6 in the paper, but it strengthens the other points. For example, they reran the analysis excluding computer jobs and firms in the tech sector altogether. The pattern still held. So it wasn't just a tech recession thing.
Interesting. Not just tech.
Nope. And they checked if it was about remote work. Maybe those jobs are easier to automate or outsource. But the trends were similar for jobs you can do remotely and jobs you can't.
Okay, so not driven by remote work either.
And maybe the most crucial check. They looked at data before late 2022, before these powerful generative AI models were widely available. And guess what? These AI exposure measures did not predict employment outcomes for young workers back then. The divergence, the gap opening up, really started after late 2022.
The timing again. That seems pretty critical. It points the finger much more directly at this new wave of generative AI.
It really does. And they also confirmed the results hold across different education levels, jobs needing college degrees, and those not and were similar for men and women, so it's not easily explained away by other demographic factors either.
Wow. Okay, they really seem to have tried to rule out the alternatives. That makes the core finding feel much more solid, doesn't it?
I think so. The combination of the specific targeting, the automation augmentation distinction, the robustness checks, and especially that timing argument, it builds a pretty compelling case that generative AI is a key driver here.
Right. So we've established jobs are shifting, particularly for young people in exposed roles.
Yeah.
But what about the money? Are salaries getting cut for these jobs? Fact 5 tackles this.
And the finding here is maybe a bit surprising. The adjustments seem to be happening much more through employment numbers, hiring freezes, maybe layoffs, fewer openings than through wages. They didn't find much difference in annual salary trends based on age or AI exposure. Pay seems relatively stable, at least in this initial period they studied.
Huh. So companies aren't saying, okay, AI can do part of this job, so we'll pay you less. They're saying, maybe we just don't need as many people doing this job at the entry level.
That seems to be the pattern so far. Economists call it wage stickiness. Wages tend to adjust more slowly than hiring numbers. Firms might find it easier or preferable to slow hiring or reduce headcount for certain roles rather than cut pay for existing workers doing those roles.
Which means for you, the listener, especially if you're younger or entering the workforce, the immediate challenge might not be lower pay in a specific job.
But rather the difficulty of finding that job opening in the first place if it's in a highly AI-exposed, automatable field. Access to the role seems to be the first point of impact.
That makes sense, though it does raise the question of whether wages might eventually adjust downwards too if the employment trends continue.
That's the open question. Will this employment first adjustment persist, or is it just the first step before wages also start to reflect the changing value of certain tasks? We'll need more time and data to see that play out.
Okay, so we've seen what's happening. The employment shifts, the automation link, the lack of wage impacts so far, and that seems robustly linked to AI. But let's get back to that question you raised earlier. Why? Why are younger, early career workers seemingly bearing the brunt of this initial impact?
Right, the mechanism. The paper offers a really interesting hypothesis here, grounded in the nature of knowledge. They argue that AI, especially these large language models trained on vast amounts of text and data, is inherently very good at replicating codified knowledge.
Codified knowledge, meaning,
Think of it as the stuff you learn from textbooks, manuals, structured information, explicit knowledge, the kind of knowledge that forms the basis of a lot of formal education and training.
okay, the book smarts.
Pretty much. And younger workers, fresh out of education or training, naturally tend to supply a higher proportion of this codified knowledge. It's what they primarily bring to the table initially.
Right, makes sense.
But AI, currently at least, is much less adept at replicating tacit knowledge.
Tacit knowledge. So, the opposite.
Yeah, the stuff that's hard to write down. The intuition, the nuanced understanding, the tips and tricks you pick up through years of hands-on experience. The street smarts of a profession, if you will.
Oh, okay. The things you learn by doing, not just by reading.
Exactly. And older, more experienced workers have accumulated much more of this tacit knowledge. It becomes a kind of buffer, something AI struggles to replace.
So the idea is AI masters the textbook faster than it masters the real-world wisdom. And since new grads rely more heavily on that textbook knowledge,
They become more vulnerable to displacement or augmentation by AI that excels at precisely that kind of codified work. While the experienced workers retain an edge because of their hard-won tacit understanding, it's a compelling explanation for the age difference in the impact.
that really clicks. It frames it not just as age, but as the type of knowledge typically associated with different career stages.
Exactly. And there's a small nuance they mentioned too. For workers without college degrees, experience might be less of a protective buffer. The impacts seem visible a bit later, up to age 40, in those lower college share jobs.
Suggesting the kind of experience might matter too. Not all experience builds the same kind of hard-to-replicate tacit knowledge.
Potentially. It hints that the interaction between AI, education, and experience is complex and might vary across different segments of the workforce.
Okay, this has been a really insightful deep dive. Let's just quickly recap the main points for everyone. Fact 1. Generative AI is having a measurable, specific impact right now. Fact 2. It's hitting early career workers, ages 22, 25, disproportionately hard and exposed jobs like software and customer service.
Third, and this is key, it's driven by AI used for automation, not so much for augmentation. How we use AI matters.
Fourth, these findings look solid. They hold up after controlling for firm effects. It's not just tech, not just remote work, and the timing lines up perfectly with the rise of generative AI.
Fifth, the impact so far is mostly on employment numbers finding the job, rather than on wages for those who have them, though that could change.
And finally, the why seems linked to AI replacing codified knowledge, which younger workers rely on more, while tacit, experience-based knowledge provides more of a buffer for older workers.
It really paints a picture of these younger workers in exposed roles as the canaries the paper talks about. Their experience might be the earliest warning signal of broader shifts to come.
And the researchers are planning to keep watching this data, right? This is just the beginning of the story.
Absolutely. Tech adoption always involves adjustments. People shift roles. New kinds of work emerge. Think about past technological shifts. There's always disruption, then adaptation. This data gives us a first look at the adaptation process in the age of AI.
It really does. So as we wrap up, maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to tune on. This research shows the future isn't just about if AI affects jobs, but how it's reshaping careers, especially for new entrants. It forces us to ask, what skills build that crucial, hard-to-automate tacit knowledge?
Yeah, if AI is mastering the codified stuff, what should we be prioritizing for ourselves or advising young people to focus on? How do education and training need to adapt to foster skills like critical thinking, complex problem solving, collaboration, things AI isn't so good at yet?
It definitely moves beyond just an economic report. It feels like a call to really think about adaptability, continuous learning, and what truly makes us valuable in a world increasingly shared with intelligent machines.